to study in different institutions. Please, again, I'm going to be asking you to do this a lot. Please get ready. With a virtual round of applause, please welcome Mr. Eric Moore Josu. I don't know, is that Mr. Doctor, Professor,
Doctor.
Dr. Eric Moore Josu?
Okay. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Just
Yes,
uh
sir.
okay, cool. So my name is Eric Mojosu. I'm an assistant professor at MIT. Basically a material scientist. But I work in two departments, the nuclear science and engineering department, and also the electrical engineering and computer science department. And why do I do that? It's because I useful for. And so, because of that, MIT is a place where they like to create very unusual opportunities for people. And so we have this position that allows us to work in multiple departments in a ways that allow you to bring together skills from those different fields and do great things. So today, I'm supposed to be sharing with you a lot on how can you become one competitive as a person applying to grad school, and also what can make your applications to look different, and at the end of the day, how can you really be successful in grad school? So I'm going to share a couple. I have a couple slides that I'm going to share to guide the conversation, if you allow me.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So can you all see my screen?
Yes. If you
Okay.
want to, good.
All right. So I'm going to be talking a lot about meats and fats. Uh, so I've been on both sides. I've been a student applying to grad school, and I've also been on the side where I get to see applications, right? And as a caveat, whatever I'm telling you today, they're my opinion. They do not represent the opinion of my employer. Is that okay? Good. And also keep in mind that these are my opinion, and they are shaped by my own experiences, and they do not necessarily become like the only options or the only pathways to grad school. And I think that's one of the mistakes that people make a lot. And this is one of the things I try to do, is to avoid the errors of generalization where people emphatically say this is just how to do it. No, that's not true. There are multiple ways for things to be done. And so one of the key things I want you to take away is that you can almost learn from my own experience and from my own opinions to be able to chart your own path that is going to be super unique. It's really, really important. And it's the most important thing I want you to take away. Not to think about it as the fact that these are just guidelines, these are guideposts, these are guide rails that could help you to make better decisions, rather than generalizing and saying this is just how to do it. I do not want you to go away with that notion. And so very briefly, what does my lab do? My lab, we design materials for nuclear energy application for reactors. We design nuclear fuels. We design what we call cladding, which is like the force protection for the nuclear fuels. And so to do that, we combine experiment with computation to be able to get these materials designed and developed in very fast manner. We no longer depend on what we call serendipity, that is discovering materials by chance. Now we are very rational in our approach of designing materials. And so I lead that lab where we have two postdocs, and we have four three PhD students and two master's students. And then in the next academic year, we should be having 3 to 4 more PhD students joining our lab. So our lab is growing very quickly. And sometimes it looks like I'm almost losing touch on how many number of students I really have. And we also have a couple undergrads that comes to work in our lab, because our vision and what we believe is that no one is too young or too early in the academic process to do research. In fact, we've had high school students from other part of the world comes to do research in our lab. So we really believe in catching them young, and that will tie into one of the key strategies that is very important to becoming very competitive for grad school. So that said, uh, you know. when people talk about going to grad school, applying to grad school, everybody really starts from this idea that you need to go to grad school. That's not really the first step. I think it really starts from what I call self-discovery. And I talk about this idea of what tickles your fancy. What do you really care about? What are your interests? What is most important to you? What keeps you awake at night? What are the questions that you ask? Those are the things that first gives you an idea if you really needs to go to grad school. In fact, I tell people that not everyone needs to go to a university. Some persons are meant to just go to a technical school because they are very good with their hand, they are very handy, and so we need those persons in our society. But I guess the context of the African situation is that everybody somehow just have to go to college, which necessarily doesn't have to be that way. Why do I say that? When I was in college, I met a couple people who they really struggled throughout our college days. The concept didn't come to them naturally, right? And I'm sure you must have seen some of these people in your class sometimes. And we just like, oh, this person is not serious. Sometimes it's not because they are not serious. It's just because it's a case, as Albert Einstein put it, asking a fish to climb a tree, right? Some of you or some of us or whatever you want to put it, who are really book smart, who really are very good with the books, who are like high achievers in college. If the situation were reversed and they say, okay, come learn how to put this engine together, come learn how to put this wood together to become a box, you're going to struggle with it. So it turns out that it's not fair on these other people who actually tag along to be in college by all means, but they do not have the knack for it. It's not something that comes to them naturally. And that's why I say it's important to have self-discovery, right? It's important to really ask yourself, what do I care about? What are my area of interest? What are the things that makes me to that I would like to change the world in? What are the things I really like to talk about a lot? And those becomes like the first pointer to let you know these are the things that I'm really good about. Because the idea is that if you want to go to grad school, it means that you want to go on to specialize in something. You want to go on to spend all your time, all your energy, all your focus on this one topic for like 5, 6 years. Think about that. And if you're successful in doing that, it's something you're going to do for the rest of your life. So it's like getting into a marriage. So what I effectively mean is that you want to make informed decision, right? This is not like something that you want to do and then you stop. It's something you want to invest 5, 6 years of your life into. So I think it requires the time to pause and ask yourself, what do I really care about? I keep saying that because that's what really matters. I tell people when they tell me, "Oh, I just want to leave the country." Let me break the news to you. This is not the path to leave the country. If it's just about leaving the country, uh, then ask yourself that is this something I care about? If you don't care about it, it means that you get into a grad school because you have good grades, you're then probably going to struggle to excel in grad school. And you really do not want that. And I think that probably this is not what you want to hear from me. But again, I always believe in telling people to do what I call take the road less traveled. Ask yourself, is this what I care about? And this is one of the story I like to share when it comes to this. It's a story of a guy who he had gone to UI, studied archaeology, and it was because he really cared about it. And people were like, "You're smart. You shouldn't study archaeology. Archaeology is not something that is viable in Nigeria." But this is what he wanted. And while doing that, because he cared about it, he dug a lot into the fair anthropology. He knew those things like the back of his hand. So when time came for grad school application, he had applied to all the leading anthropological and archaeological schools in the world, and most of them in the United States, and I think one or two in Canada. It turns out all the 12 schools gave him admission. All the top archaeology schools gave him admission because they were so fascinated by the things he wrote in his application. And then it was time for him to make a choice. Do you know the schools were competing over this guy because he studied archaeology that people don't care about. But the way he had done it was so fascinating that he became someone that everybody was interested in. And eventually, they had to compete in terms of how much they wanted to offer him for his RA-ship for him to decide on which school to go to. And today, the last I track his career, he's become an assistant professor in one of the schools that I will not mention. So the point I'm making is that choosing something that you care about is really, really important. Now, about grad school admission, I intentionally did not put which one is facts and which one are fallacies or myths. But I guess I'm gonna ask what you think. Uh, so the first I talk about, when you're going to apply to grad school, people tell you, oh, only the grades does really count. But in reality, from what I've seen, everything really matters. Everything really matters. Have you done an internship before in that area? Did you publish something in that area? And what did you publish? Okay. And just a note of warning, why admission committees may care about you publishing something, right? We care about what venue you're publishing them in. If you're just publishing some random stuff, things in like a predatory journal, it doesn't really count. We don't look, it doesn't really count for you. People then think that you're just trying to bypass the process. So if something has to be published, then it has to be rightly and well published, right? And these days that we live in where people copy people's stuff to go publish, and I've seen that a lot coming from the African countries, just to be quite honest and blunt with you, if you don't have the bandwidth to have something published, then you don't have to do that. Okay. What really counts, like I said, is the totality of your application, really. Your grades are important. Um, We've done somewhat of a research before, which everybody will do because we tend to all do like a final year project when we all went to school, right? To college. So what you want to do is that you want to take that final year project serious. Try not to make sure you don't plagiarize on your final year thesis, okay? Because what that means is that imagine you have to come, you're invited for an interview, right? And then you want to share part of that thesis. If you plagiarize it, then it becomes more problematic for you to share it with people, right? So make sure you do not plagiarize any part of your thesis. Do not use Wikipedia for your thesis writing. Okay. I'm telling you all this because I saw those when I was in college. All right. If you get the opportunity to work in a group, a research group, or work with any of your professor, that really counts for something. Make sure you document all those things you learn from that process. It really becomes something that might be very useful to you. Okay. Uh, so when you apply, is funding automatic? No, it depends on the school. So for some school, for most of the school in the US, if you are given an admission, most of the time that comes with somewhat of the funding the funding nature will be spelled out in your offer letter. If they have a different mechanism for awarding the funding, they are going to say the same in the letter. But for most of the Taiwan R1 school are the top research schools in the US. Those tends to be lumped into your offer letters. But if they are not, then they are going to let you to know. And there are no free lunches. Usually the fundings are always like either from like a research assistant, where you do research with the professor, or it's a teaching assistantship where you'll be teaching while doing while taking your classes and doing your research with your advisor as well. Of course, there are other like fellowships that maybe do not require you to do a teaching assistantship, but you still have to do your research, right? Because at the end of the day, the research is very important for you to get your degree. So some people think, oh, it's easier for me to apply and get into a master's program than the PhD. No one size fits all. It depends on the program and depends on the preference of the professors. I personally do not, personally, this is my own personal opinion. I generally do not like to hire terminal degrees. I prefer the long haul because, in my mind, in the first 2 years, if you join my lab, I'm actually training you to know how to do research, right? So, and that's about 2 years. So, if it takes 2 years for you to know how to do research and you're getting the master's, then the return on investment for me is very small because I then need you for the next 3, 4 years to actually do solid and good research, right? So, but some people they hire a lot of master students. Some person they prefer hiring PhD. So there's no one size fit all. Or it's a matter of perspective. And of course, if you're going to Europe, getting a master's before a PhD is very common, right? But in the US, we have a lot of programs that allow people to get into the PhD program without doing a master's degree because the number of years it takes anyway means that you're like somewhat doing a master's first and then doing the PhD proper. Now, contacting the faculty improves your chances. Again, not necessarily. Most of the admission decisions are usually made by an admission committee. Of course, maybe the faculty can weigh in, but then it depends on the quality of your applications. And may I point this to you that there are cases where we end on like excellent candidates that are really excellent and very good. Of course, we want to attract them to our lab. So those may get headhunted. But in general, there is a whole admission process that goes on that everybody gets to go through. So maybe if you contact the faculty, maybe you'll be on their radar, but does it really improve your application? Maybe not necessarily, because I tell people that this is like after the fact. What really counts the most is what sets you out of the pack. Like if you put all these applications of students together, right? If you put all the applications together, what is it that you've done differently that can set you apart? What do you have in your SOP? Are you just writing the regular story of since I was a child, I've always been inquisitive. I don't really care. I take that back. I care that you're inquisitive, right? But just reading that random on your SOP, maybe it doesn't make so much difference to me. All right. What I then care about is, and this is really important. If you do not take any of the things I said, this is important. Show, don't tell. Show, don't tell. Show me, don't tell me. Okay. So rather than tell me that I'm an inquisitive child when I was young, right? I rather that you chronicle the things you've done that demonstrate to me that you are an inquisitive child or that you are an inquisitive individual. Because at the core of doing a PhD, it's someone who is very curiosity driven. It's somebody who likes to ask the why, the when, the how, the what's. Those are the key things that people really want to watch out for. So, but if you just tell me randomly that, oh, because talk is cheap, right? So I rather that you showed me from what you've done than for you to just tell me that you are an inquisitive person or that you've done this or you've done that. Just show it to me. Show me the evidence. That's what I really care about. Um, I think one of the other uh, things people talk about is external funding improve my chances. Maybe, maybe not. I do know that for programs that are very competitive and are what they are sought, that your funding source is what is the least in the decision making process. It's really without this funding, do you merit this position? Without this funding, are you competitive enough? Okay. So if you have an external funding, of course, that might be a pointer that you are competitive because you probably have competed with other people to get that funding from your own country or from a body or something like that. But at the end of the day, that was just from a different pool. So people would like to compare you with the people in a particular admission process pool to be able to make a decision. At least that's what happens to programs that are competitive and programs that are what they are sought. But again, maybe for some programs, if you have funding, it kind of weighs very heavily. But for many of the R1 schools that I'm more familiar with, the research tier universities, tier one research universities in the US, that's like something that comes maybe later on. But the most important thing is, can you survive in the program? Because at the end of the day, what really matters most is Are you made for grad school? Right? Are you made for grad school? You might like be a person who gets really good grades. You're really good at getting good grades, but good grades is the fact that it gets you a BSc, right? And BSc is you mastering or learning existing knowledge. Okay, you're just learning existing knowledge, nothing to it. Existing knowledge, and some people are designed to be able to synthesize existing knowledge. Now, master's degree is now taking those existing knowledge to do a research. Okay, you took the existing knowledge and apply it to something, right? Example, we know that if I put a metal in an acidic solution, it's going to corrode very fast. These are very well known. Hydrogen will interact with the metal and things like that, right? And then electrons are going to be liberated, and the metal will start to dissolution will start going on, right? That's fairly well known knowledge, right? At the master's level, we can give you a metal. Okay, do a corrosion process on different type of metals. Okay. But by the time it comes to a PhD, if you look at that picture, right, you are actually making a dent on existing knowledge. You're actually creating new information. You're literally pushing what we call the frontiers. You're actually questioning and pushing the branding of the state of the art. What I effectively mean is that you have to be a creative person. It means that you have to be the person who would like to ask the why, the what, the when, and the if type questions, right? You have to be the kind of person who would like to write, okay? You must be able to put your thoughts to paper. You must be that kind of person who is creative enough to think of different ways to explain things that happens in nature, okay? If he's let's say is something in social sciences, right? You must be somebody who is able to put these theories together to be able to inform why things happen, right? And this does not come naturally to everyone. So that's why I say you have to ask yourself, who am I? Is this what I really want, right? Because you do not want to go into this thing in a way that you you endure your time in grad school. My grad school days were one of my fun time because I really enjoyed myself, right? And usually I tell people when my job it's very intense, it takes a lot of my time, but I tell people I'm in an abusive relationship with my job. And let me explain. It means that, when you say something is abusive, you're enjoying it, but it's taking a lot of your time and sometimes it's painful, right? But I enjoy it a lot. Why? Because this is what I'm born to do. Okay. And one thing I also tell people is that pursue something that you're truly passionate about. Pursue something that you truly care about. So that it just be like they are paying you to do fun stuff. Okay. So if you care about these sort of things, then I think you're made for grad school. Otherwise, I think you should consider something different. And that's okay. All right. Um, you probably are not expecting me to talk like this, but I rather tell you what is most important that can make you competitive, really. And there are so many. I know there are questions around how do I write an email to professors to get them to respond. If you think about this as professors, we get tons of emails every day. On an average, I get about 200 emails every day. Think about that, right? But at the end of the day, uh, I tell people that don't write one-page email. People will probably not have the time to read them, right? You want to write email 4, 5, 6 lines, go straight to the point. If there's any of the paper you read that was very that tickles your fancy, that kind of fit into what you want to do, talk to them about it and have an open question of what you thought about the paper and what you think could be the next step that you could contribute to that. And then and they probably will respond to you. Trust me, we are always looking for stellar candidates, stellar students. And looks like these days they are like the number of quality candidates seems to be shrinking in some ways. So we are always on the lookout for the good ones, right? So what I effectively mean is that if you come off as a good candidate and you make a good impression in your email, people will probably respond to your email. Don't write 2-page emails. Don't attach like 5 papers for them to read. They really do not have that time. All right. In terms of, like I said, for the school, for the fundings, usually it comes usually depending on the school, maybe with the offer, or you have a separate mechanisms that get the funding available to you. So what I want to be able to do is to take lots of questions that are very specific. And trust me, I've been in your shoes before. I didn't go to Stanford, so my path is not a typical academia who went to like Stanford, Berkeley, and then went to MIT to become a professor. No, I went to Ahmadu Bello University. I studied chemistry. Okay, I went to African University of Science and Technology and studied material science and engineering. And then I went to University of Saskatchewan in Canada to do a PhD in mechanical engineering. And then went to the national lab, and then from the national lab, went to MIT, and I'm at MIT. So my path, it's something I can is that is relatable. Okay, so I'm very happy to answer all kind of questions, and trust me, I've heard a lot of questions, and I probably know have an answer to some of them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, I'm going